Hello, I have behind me an image of a billboard taken in Daytona Beach, Florida in 2021. I have the great pleasure today of speaking with Harry Guiremand, the press spokesman of the Bloodstained Men in the United States. At J4MB, we've posted many links to press reports of their protests, and Brother K, the organization's leader, was a guest of honor at the 2020 ICMI and was interviewed for the 2021 ICMI. Brother K and the Bloodstained Men are universally admired for their campaigning work right across the men's rights movement. Harry, a very warm welcome to the 2024 event. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. Harry, the obvious first question, which I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you get asked even more, what makes infant circumcision a core men's rights issue?
Well, the thing is, when you circumcise a boy, you circumcise a man. And every man who is cut, almost all of them have been cut against their will. And this is a fundamental human rights issue that you have a right to your own body. And it's clear from the understanding of female genital mutilation written into law in most Western countries that you cannot cut girls' genitals. But somehow they have not yet extended equal rights to males. And so for every man, they have a right to their own body, whether they're intact or if they've been suffered genital mutilation. It's a core part of their right to their own body, which has to be acknowledged and has to be enforced in law. It's meaningless to have a right without any enforcement.
It is, I mean, something we get time and time again comparing MGM with FGM. If you speak to any feminist about MGM, she immediately talks about FGM. That's very predictable. But the double standard, the one that always slays me is when we're talking about MGM, like I do sometimes in protests and so on. And you will very often get the argument that it's the parents' right. There's a cultural thing, it's a religious thing. And you say, well, if it were a cultural thing to have FGM, as it is, of course, in parts of Africa and so on, would it justify FGM because the parents wanted it? And of course, nobody has ever said to me, yes, of course. It is an extraordinary double standard. Harry, can you relate the history of the Bloodstained Men and their friends?
Yes. So in 2012, the American Academy of Pediatrics issued a statement, which was long anticipated. I mean, it was overdue, an update of their circumcision policy. And there was high hopes that they would finally put an end to circumcision by adopting the same kind of standards that the rest of the world already held. And instead, they came out with the absolutely shameful, disastrous policy that was deceptive in every way. And it created a firestorm of protest and inspired Brother K, who is the founder of the Bloodstained Men, as you mentioned before, to initiate this group. And the late Jonathan Conte, a young activist who unfortunately committed suicide, we think because of this circumcision trauma, but he instigated the protest at the AAP meeting that fall in New Orleans, with 7 men standing in bloodstained suits outside of their conference. And the effect was electric. It was clearly they were getting traction with this. And so Brother K immediately understood this is the symbol that we need. This is how we reach people. We need to wear a blood stain on our crotch and confront people that we have been injured. We are not happy. We're not taking this lying down. We're fighting back. And that became the start of the Bloodstained Men. Originally, Brother K alone protested at a conference of deans of medical schools in San Francisco, and they immediately took notice. They were paying attention, taking pictures, even sometimes taking pictures with him. And clearly this was the symbol that was going to work, because unlike any other symbol, it represents the actual thing that we're protesting. And from there, we started Brother K started a Facebook group that grew rapidly, and then we started our program of touring America, doing protests and averaging about 60 a year, and from getting as much media coverage as we could. You know, we're learning all the time, but getting better at what we do, and that's how it came to be.
And if memory serves me right, Harry, the APA decision was a central plank in the film American Circumcision.
Right, the AAP,
AAP, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the main driver of that wording was a man in his 70s or 80s. I seem to remember, a sort of white-haired guy, and he was asked a question along the lines of what would you say to these people who are protesting, and his answer was something along the lines of, I think they should get a life.
Yeah, that's what they always say, is that there's something, it's blaming the victim. I mean, it's clearly they've always done this. They say, well, there's something wrong with them. They're disturbed. Honestly, if you're not disturbed by genital mutilation, there's something wrong with you. So yeah, we're disturbed by what's happening. We are.
Yeah.
We admit that.
No, it's truly appalling. I can't remember who there was a Greek philosopher who people are always quoting at me, the diktat, which I think doctors say early in their career, they have to read out the statement, first do no harm. And yet we have countless doctors doing harm here. We have countless doctors killing unborn children. I think I once held the profession in high regard. Today I despair that they can do such things for personal gain.
Yeah, we limit ourselves only to the issue of circumcision, and
Of course, sorry.
we have to be focused on a single issue, and clearly it's harmful. I mean, they know it's harmful. There's no secret of it. They try to pretend otherwise, but it's in the medical literature, has been forever. It's been acknowledged going back to Maimonides that it weakens the organ. That's his own words. I mean, that's centuries ago, and they've always known it was harmful. That it's not a secret, but they're trying to keep it a secret from the people that they sell it to and profit by it. So they profit from from giving bad advice, which is a conflict of interest and is just an ethical failure on a scale that's just unmatched, in my view.
It's interesting you mentioned Moses Maimonides, 13th century, I think, but he was very, very clear that the whole point of circumcision is to damage the organ, so
Right.
that and the main the main plus point for him was that Jewish men would be more faithful to their wives. There may be more, but he was quite clear about that from memory.
Yes, and so, there's some evidence that genital mutilation of either males or females makes them more compulsively sexual to get satisfaction that they've otherwise would have had, but they engage in more compulsive sexual behavior.
Yeah.
So that would not make somebody more faithful to their spouse.
Indeed. Harry, is infant circumcision medical fraud?
Yes, it is. And I have a video from a group called circumcisionisafraud.com, which I hope you can include. And it explains why it's a fraud. Briefly, they don't disclose the harm. It's not medically indicated. It constitutes a criminal assault based on U.S. law, current law. We don't have to change the law. The law already says that. And they're profiting from misleading parents by not disclosing the harm for the when they're soliciting permission to circumcise, and they call it informed consent for a reason. You have to inform, or there's no consent. Without the informing, it's coercion. So these circumcisions in America, which are 1 million a year, or something like that, those are all coerced, forced amputations. Those are not. It's not medicine. It's violence.
It is. It is indeed.
Circumcision is no longer widely practiced or accepted in much of the world. The United States is a notable exception, whose doctors still promote circumcision as a normal medical surgery. However, attitudes about circumcision are quickly changing. In November 2020, a major new paper was published by prominent legal scholars in the Cornell Journal of Law and Public Policy, with the simple title, "Is Circumcision a Fraud?" This paper lays out in detail why circumcision is not only a violation of medical ethics, but also unlawful and fraudulent under current U.S. law. The scale of the fraud is potentially vast, possibly in the tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars. This has enormous implications for doctors, hospitals, patients, and American society. Here are the 5 points in the paper you need to know. 1. Circumcision is impossible to justify on medical grounds. 2. Circumcision violates a child's right to bodily integrity. 3. Non-therapeutic circumcision constitutes criminal assault and battery under U.S. law. 4. Doctors routinely withhold critical information regarding circumcision, which is a breach of trust and a violation of medical ethics. And 5. The American Academy of Pediatrics, or AAP, has knowingly misrepresented the risks and complications of circumcision, which is fraud. We'll briefly explain each point. First, non-therapeutic circumcision is impossible to justify on medical grounds. This view is widely accepted in the international medical community. But U.S. doctors present circumcision as a normal and routine procedure. In reality, circumcision is a harmful, unnecessary, and irreversible surgery that removes important healthy tissue that can never be replaced. 38 international medical authorities have spoken out that circumcision is unethical, unlawful, and violates a doctor's Hippocratic oath to do no harm. For these reasons, circumcision is impossible to justify as normal or routine. Second, circumcision violates a child's right to bodily integrity. A cherished American ideal is that its citizens have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Supreme Court has ruled that no right is more carefully guarded than the right of every individual to be free and safe from harm. Parents, however, do not have the right to consent to unnecessary surgery. For example, they can't cut off a baby's finger just because they want to, nor may doctors conduct unnecessary surgery due to their Hippocratic oath to do no harm. Which leads to the third point. Circumcision is criminal assault. In simple terms, circumcision is violence, not medicine. When surgery is performed on a child without informed legal consent, under U.S. law, it is considered assault, battery, and child abuse. Internationally, circumcision is viewed as child violence, not medicine. The United Nations Partner Council on Violence Against Children has stated that circumcision is a gross violation of a child's rights. Fourth, circumcision is a breach of patient trust and a violation of a doctor's medical ethics. Before performing any surgery, doctors must always obtain informed consent from patients or parents. To obtain consent, doctors must fully inform patients or parents of the surgery's risks and complications. Circumcision has a list of at least 50 possible complications. By routinely withholding this critical information, doctors breach their duty to fully inform patients and tell the truth. This is illegal and unethical. Fifth, and crucially, circumcision is intentional fraud by the American Academy of Pediatrics and participating physicians. Parents are being deceived into routinely performing surgery that has no meaningful childhood benefits, yet carries significant risks and a lifetime of harm. Internationally, the medical rule is to never operate unnecessarily on healthy children. The AAP knows this, but still positions circumcision as a normal and beneficial procedure. This is so their doctors can be reimbursed for the procedure from insurance companies and taxpayers. Medicaid and insurance companies pay for at least 1/3 of circumcisions. If circumcision was recognized as the unnecessary surgery that it is, AAP stakeholder members would be impacted by a significant decline in revenue. This is fraud. The AAP knows circumcision is harmful and unnecessary, but they continue to endorse it publicly so their doctors can continue to profit. This is wrong and illegal. Know the facts, know your rights, and help us stop the fraud that is circumcision. If you want to learn more, visit www.circumcisionisafraud.com.
Harry, the next question might seem a bit odd, given that the Bloodstained Men and their friends are probably, I think, the most high-profile anti-MGM campaigning organization in the world. I mean, I'd struggle to think anyone who is, well, there's no one else in your league, I don't think, quite frankly. And I admire everything that you do. But how do you know if your efforts are having any effect?
We sometimes come back to a city and people tell us that, you know, we saw your protest and we decided to keep our son intact. And one time in somewhere in Florida, we got an email after our protest that the parents were on their way to the hospital to have their boy circumcised. They saw the protest and said, no, we'll turn the car around. We're not doing this. So we know we have an effect. And we know that, you know, we've had hundreds and hundreds of press media coverage in radio, TV, newspapers, blog posts, podcasts. We know that we're having an effect. We're getting publicity, which is essential to changing minds. And we just wish we could, you know, we'd like to see it happen faster. But all we, you know, if we could think of a way to make it faster, we would, but we're doing the best we can think of right, you know, so far. Yeah.
Indeed. No, I was very impressed by these billboards, and you had them across major highways in quite a few, and these things, I guess these things are not cheap.
Right. So that's the only downside of billboards is they're expensive. But what we try to do is before every protest tour, we pick a city in that tour where we can put a big billboard up, and hopefully a few days before the tour begins so we can start to create some kind of buzz. And also, if possible, in a place where we can actually stage a protest underneath the billboard so that we can, you know, get the double effect of the protest and the big billboard in the background.
Have you ever had them damaged, Harry?
Not yet. No, we haven't had that. We've had the billboard companies sometimes refuse to put them up. And so we just, you know, find another location or find another billboard company. But mostly they've been pretty good to work with. Yeah.
That's kind of surprising, because in the UK, there were no major billboard, you know, I mean, the billboard companies who would work with us have sites that nobody would ever see, you know, but the majors wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. They just absolutely flat refused.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. I mean, we just, you know, we have a working relationship with these companies, and we just keep if we are blocked, we say, well, okay, what else do you have that we can do in the same area? And so far they've been very helpful. So we've and we're good customers. I mean, we keep coming back and buying more billboards. Yes. So why wouldn't they?
Yeah. No, fantastic. I mentioned earlier that you are the street campaigning. I mean, it's not just MGM, Harry. I think I would struggle to think of anybody, I mean, across the Western world, who manages to have such impactful protests and reported in the media. I mean, it tends to be local media, I think, doesn't it? But
right.
But in this country, you know, we could do something like you do here, and the local media wouldn't touch it. They absolutely wouldn't touch it. How do you get sufficient volunteers to staff? I understand you have some 60 protests every year.
Right. So it's always a struggle to staff them. And because you're asking people to give up a week, 10 days of their time without any compensation. And not everybody can do that, can just walk away from their jobs and family for 10 days and you know. So, but we do promote ourselves to on Facebook primarily, and on Twitter or X, and we are constantly reaching out to everybody that's protested in the past and say, well, I want to do another one, and they often do if they can get away, because they are in a way fun. So people do like to come back, if so it's not hard to get people to come back or want to come back. It's to get them to, it's just whether or not they're able to.
Right. And something that always strikes, I think, most people who've seen your protest is that you have a significant number of women among the protesters.
Yes, and we're so blessed to have them. They moms who, especially moms who, well, either moms that were defrauded and tricked into mutilating their boy and are furious, or moms who have kept their son intact and they really understand the issue and they're really on board and they're super enthusiastic. And and single women, we get, we're fortunate that women want to join us, and we're really lucky to have them. Yeah.
Okay. And Harry, my final question, which touches a bit on what you were talking about, I think, what's it like to tour with the Bloodstained Men?
Well, it's hard work. I mean, it's really, you start out from the moment you wake up till basically you fall asleep. You're basically engaged in the effort, either setting up protests, traveling to protests, doing the protests, coming back, monitoring social media, talking to the media, trying to correct mistakes, and it just goes on until you fall asleep at night, and just until you collapse, basically. But it's a huge amount of fun, because for me, at least, I can speak only for myself directly, but these people are the people I just love being with. I mean, they're smart, engaged, optimistic, idealistic, and realistic. I mean, this activists span this gap between, the is-ought divide. They understand what ought to be, and they understand what is. And so they're saying, well, our feet are firmly planted in reality in terms of what we can expect and what we can accomplish. But we know where we're going, and we're not losing sight of our aim. And such people are just enormously rewarding to be with, just intrinsically. It's just so much fun to be with that group of people, that it's very addictive in a way. I mean, people want to come back because there is this wonderful camaraderie and spirit and engagement, and just being with people you just really intrinsically like. And that's the big reward. And, there's no financial reward. It's this psychic reward of really enjoying life and being engaged and doing what you believe in, and being with people who are the same as you, and really, it's just, it's awesome. I can't really overstate it.
Okay. I know you live in Hawaii.
Yes.
Which I'm guessing is not the greatest hardship in life.
I'm not kidding.
Have you had a protest in Hawaii, Harry?
Not yet. We have done all the states except Alaska and Hawaii, because just the cost of getting everybody out to these relatively remote places. It is in our plan to do both Alaska and Hawaii, but so far it's never gotten to the top of our list.
Okay.
And Hawaii, unfortunately, has a big circumcision problem. It is one of the high cutting zones, sadly. So we really are needed out here.
What do the stats tell us about whether it's on the decline, Harry? Do you have any information on that?
We have a real hard time getting good information. We believe that it's been slowly declining based on the reports we've gotten, based on the hospital data of how many boys are circumcised at birth. The trouble is they keep promoting it after birth, and there's this problem of forced retraction. At a well baby visit, it's more quite often somebody will forcibly retract an intact boy's foreskin, which will cause a damage, and then they'll say, "Oh well, you need to have him circumcised, and you should have had him circumcised to begin with. Look, he's got an infection." And so there's that problem, and there are lawyers working on that problem. Doctors Opposing Circumcision is one group that is very strong on preventing forced retractions and suing when they occur. But because of that, the hospital, the data that when the boy is released from the hospital at birth doesn't include those later circumcisions, which are done by violence committed by medical practitioners, iatrogenic injury.
Right.
And so we believe it's around half right now, but we can't really say for certain what the number is.
Okay. One thing I know from, mind you, it's rather anecdotal, Harry, but in the UK, medical students get something like 7 years of training, and I understand that they might get 5 minutes on the penis and foreskin, if that, and what they're told is complete nonsense. So they really are stupendously ignorant about the harm when they start. It's really a quite astonishing thing, isn't it? How deeply ignorant doctors are when they start doing this butchery.
It's shocking, especially in the UK. I mean, we knew that in America, and we've been told that the only thing doctors learn in medical school is about the foreskin is how to cut it off, and they literally will say, well, it has no function. I mean they should know better. I mean, it's just gross incompetence for someone not to understand basic anatomy and be practicing medicine. That's like, how do you get away with that? That's just crazy.
And it has what I've seen your posters saying it has 16 plus functions.
Right.
And one of the things that to me is one of the most appalling aspects is this idea that the foreskin should retract at birth. And I mean, if left alone, as obviously it should be, it can be puberty or even after that's possible. The idea that there's a problem, it's the lens that it's looked through, isn't it? It's just a crazy lens.
It's fraud. I mean, that's the claiming that there's phimosis when the boy is too young to have it naturally retract is just medical fraud. It's just there's no way around it.
Okay. Harry, apologies for asking 7 questions after my final question.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm here.
But you've been a wonderful guest. I cannot say how much I admire what what you, Brother Kay, and your colleagues do. It's absolutely inspiring, and I wish you every success going forward.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot. It's coming from you. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Harry. Be well.
Okay, you too.